Here we have a pellet stove. This particular one's a fireplace insert. That's why the back is not as nice as those freestanding stoves. You don't see it, it slides into the fireplace. This person complained that there's noisy operation. Judging by the dirt, grime, and the pellets underneath, and it hasn't been cleaned or lubricated in years, I'm guessing that's why. So that's what we're going to do next, is properly clean, lubricate all the moving parts, so we have nice, smooth, safe operation for the heating season coming up. Here we'll be moving the room fan, they call it. It'll be this particular fan right here with the squirrel cage. First you want to disconnect the two wires. Make sure you label where they go so you can put it back together properly. Next you want to take a 7mm or 1/4 inch nut driver. I know the camera probably can't pick this up, but there's a 1/4 inch screw right there. Take your ratchet, remove that. Set that aside. Next there's a little twist lock here. Twist, turn it the opposite way, swing it out of the way. You should be able just to wiggle this loose. Try not to rip the gasket, otherwise you will have to buy another one. It should just slide out like that. Obviously you can see he never cleaned it. So that's what we're going to do next, is take it apart and clean it. Now that we have our fan assembly out of the stove, it's time to remove the squirrel cage. For this I recommend taking a Sharpie, making a mark on the shaft. That way we can tell how far in or out that blade's actually sitting on the shaft so it doesn't rub on the housing when you're reassembling. After you've done that, spin it around so you got the set screw pointing whatever way up. Once you get your Torx bit, T20 in there, you want to rotate that so you can actually get it in line with where the exit of the fan is. You want to take a 1/4 inch ratchet with a little extension, put it on there, weasel it through the fan blades, loosen that set screw up. With it loose, you should be able to slide it out off the shaft. With those two separated, you can see how dirty and nasty it is in there. So next we're going to clean it. First we'll start with the squirrel cage. For this I recommend some kind of degreaser. Simple green, power purple, that's what I'm going to use. Spray it down, let it soak in, then take it in, run it under some hot water. That should remove most of the debris from the wheel. If you got some stubborn stuff stuck on there, you could use a wire brush, kind of loosen it up, rinse it off again, you should be good. Once you get it all cleaned up, let it dry. Then I recommend taking some of this dry graphite lube by CRC. Spray the wheel down. It'll help fill in some of these little pit holes from the rust and give it a smooth surface. It'll stop the dust from adhering to it. Stuff works great. Next, we'll move on to cleaning the fan housing. For this, you want to use compressed air or air in a can first. Blow out all the bigger stuff. Next, take your degreaser, whatever you use on your squirrel cage is fine, whether it be the Simple Green or Purple Power Up that I'm using. Spray it onto the rag. Wipe down as much stuff as you can. Try to get all the gunk out. You don't want to spray the actual Purple Power Up in there. You don't want to soak the motor. So you just want to spray it onto the rag, wipe it all down. With that being clean, obviously you got to do the outside. Do the same thing. Spray it onto the rag, wipe it down, get all this fuzz and gunk off of it. Once you're done cleaning, you want to lubricate. So I use 3-in-1 oil. It seems to work best on these small motors. Right there's your little oiling port. So you want to take this, tip it so the oiling port is up, dribble some in there. As you turn the shaft, kind of let it work in there. It'll keep it quiet, running smooth for the next heating season. Alright, with our squirrel cage and fan assembly here, sprayed down with our graphite lube after being cleaned. We use the 3-in-1 oil to oil the motor. Now it's time for the reassembly. So first you want to make sure the shaft right here, the flat edge is towards the exhaust, same way we took it apart. Next we'll take our squirrel cage here. We'll make sure that set screw is facing the same direction out the exhaust. That way when you tighten it down, it'll tighten down on that flat part of the shaft. When you're sliding the squirrel cage in there, you want to make sure you go to the exact same mark that we marked when we took it apart. That way you know you're not too far in or not too far out and it won't rub. Once you get that in there, take your T20 torque wrench again, stick it in there, take your 1/4 inch with your extension on there, get it through that blade, tighten it up. Once you get it tight, give it a spin. If you hear rubbing, you're obviously too far in or out. Move it a little bit, get the adjustment right so when you spin it, you don't hear any of that rubbing. And with that done, we're on to the next step. Now that you have your fan and fan motor assembly clean, it's time to clean the stove side of it. So we'll take a shop vac, we'll vacuum with the loose pellets, the other bigger debris. Next we'll take our degreaser we were using before, spray it onto the rag like we did before, wipe it all down, try to get as much grunge out of the actual pellet stove frame as we can. Next we'll take what they call a refrigerator coil brush or a lint dryer brush. It's flexible, works great. Your air enters here, comes out the heat exchanger tube, so we're going to take this, stick it in through the grate, get down into those tubes, brush all that down, get all the lint and stuff and nasty junk back down into here. Once you get it down into here, take the brush in here, get it running back and forth a bunch of times, knock it all down to the very bottom. Once you got it to the very bottom, you want to take your shop vac again and vacuum that out. And then your stove side is clean. Now that you have your squirrel cage back inside your fan motor assembly and your stove side clean, it's time to reinstall the motor. So we're just going to push those wires down. Make sure you don't pinch any. Take your time. Make sure that rubber piece sits on that flat mount. We're just going to slide it back into the groove right there. We're going to take the twist lock, twist it back on top of it. Get it to pull it nice and tight. Make sure you snap it in there. Make sure it's snug. Take your 1/4 inch little bolt. Put that back up on top here. Next you're going to take your 1/4 inch ratchet or 1/4 inch nut driver. Tighten that back up. Then the only thing left to do is plug these 2 wires in to where you labeled it. Plug them in there, and then she's ready to go for the next heating season. So I quickly made up a little test cord just to plug the fan in and see how quiet it is. I know you don't have a video to compare the loudness to, but if you're running your own, you could hear the noise that your own makes. So this you'll be able to see how quiet it is after it's been cleaned, lubed, and reinstalled. So as you can hear, it runs pretty quiet. There's no bearing noise, there's no humming. There's smooth noise throughout, same pitch. So it's ready to go for the next heating season.